guys, welcome to my channel. My name is ReadingBear and I hope you are ready for some more stories. And today, we'll take a look at some new entitled people content. If you enjoyed my content, please don't forget to subscribe to my channel and post some bear emojis in the comment. And now, let's dive right into the stories.
The first story is titled, "Neighbor Trespassed on my land and trimmed my bushes near the property line without permission." TLDR. Crazy neighbor trespasses everywhere while holding a pellet gun. He talks about being friends with the Pope and other ridiculous things. He cut the flowers off one of my bushes and the police didn't do anything, saying it was too close to the curb and town property. They let him get away with everything, so me and everyone else got restraining orders. Finally, the police were taking him away for a few hours before returning him home. He has stopped trespassing and now sticks to his own property. I knew that I was going to have to write a story about my neighbor at one point. The only thing I didn't know was when and why. To put it very bluntly, my neighbor is crazy and terrorizes everyone else that lives near him. The part where it hits the gray area is that I'm not quite sure how much of what he is doing and saying he does on purpose and how much could be due to some underlying problem. The biggest example of that is trying to figure out the things that he says. Now, some of it are obvious lies, like him saying that he is friends with the Pope, and he is close friends with presidents from many different countries. He also says that squirrels are working for the CIA, and he is hired by some random agency to eliminate them and keep government secrets safe. Now, I know on the surface it is clear that none of that stuff is true. I just don't know that if he actually considers it true or uses it as an excuse when he gets caught doing things that he shouldn't. The major thing being that it is not uncommon for anyone in the neighborhood to find him wandering around on their properties, sometimes armed with a pellet gun, doing who knows what. Obviously, most people call the police, but they don't do much except ask him to please leave their property and go back to his. Since he is just mostly wandering around and not actually doing anything illegal, they don't want to arrest him. I understand that because they probably realize that he isn't all there, and I actually think that he has some member of his family working on the police force. So many they know something the rest of us don't. Still, we do not want him on our properties due to how unstable he actually is. I have seen him use his pellet gun to attack the CIA squirrels. Even though he is mainly just shooting at empty air. Everyone's main concern was that he was accidentally going to hurt someone or do something like break a window in his crazy shooting spree. He never actually did any damage until one day when he was in my front yard. I didn't actually see him at first, but when I did and realized what he was doing, I called the police immediately. I knew that for normal trespassing they weren't going to do anything, but he had hedge cutters and was trimming the bush in front of my property. I have no idea what he was thinking, but I was scared to approach him because of him having something sharp. Now, I will admit the bush wasn't anything special, but it was mine and he was absolutely ruining it. I guess he felt there was something wrong with the flowers that grew on it, because he managed to cut off about 90% of them before the police got there, and I felt comfortable enough going outside. Despite being totally crazy, he was aware enough to put the shears down when the police showed up. They asked me the problem and I explained it to them, only for them to try and give me an answer to let neighbor get away with it. Officer. So, we can't actually do anything about this because he wasn't on and destroying your property. Me. You saw him destroying the bush. There are cut flowers all around it. Officer. We know that he did that to the bush, but it isn't actually your property. Me. I don't understand. So, you know he did it, but you are saying that my front yard isn't my property? Officer. The first 10 feet are actually town property, so he wasn't technically trespassing. He might have just been keeping the bush out of the road. Me. The bush wasn't in the road. Can you please just tell him to go back to his own home? I don't feel safe with him having the shears and being so close to my house. They finally agree to at least do that and neighbor walks back over to his house. I still didn't like what he did and looked up different ways that I could try and stop it from happening again. I was able to get a specific kind of restraining order against him where we could still both live on the block, but he wasn't allowed to go on my property or 20 feet near it. So, it was enough to keep him from that area in front that apparently doesn't belong to me. The problem was, though, that getting him to follow it becomes a bit of a problem. I have called the police multiple times of him being in violation of it. Once he was even right up at my windows. They still, though, won't do anything else but ask him to go back to his own house, which does the trick. My restraining orders seemed to have a domino effect, though, where more and more people were getting them against him. The big result from this was finally the police having to do something, since they were getting almost daily calls about him breaking restraining orders, and his family connection must have not been strong enough to stop it. He never actually gets in trouble. The police just take him away for a while and return him back to his house after a few hours. Still, it was better than it was before, and he seems to be slowly learning that he can't just wander around and trespass constantly, because he is actually going to get into trouble one of these days. I know it isn't the most satisfying ending for some of you, but at the same time we really don't know what is going through his head. I personally think that whoever is helping him stay out of trouble with the police should be taking steps to helping him in the long run. He hasn't been caught trespassing for a few weeks now, and instead is just on his own property with his pellet gun shooting at invisible squirrels and muttering to himself how he needs to keep the whole area secure for when the head of the FBI comes for his visit. I feel really bad for neighbor, and I hope that one day he gets the help that he clearly needs, but I will say I am happier and feel safer with him staying out of everyone's property and destroying things. He is basically an outsider of the neighborhood more than ever, as nobody wants anything to do with him. I know that some people have tried going to his house and being friendly with him, only to be met with the pellet gun pointed at their face and being told to get the hell away from him. Nobody else was in a rush to try and mend fences after that, and we are just waiting and seeing what will happen with neighbor next. The next story is titled, HOA Warning for Garage Door Left Open. Ever since my HOA changed management companies, the new management company, let's call them Poopity Scoop Management, has been doing frequent inspections. Literally people walking around with clipboards and taking photos and mailing warning letters to everyone. This time, I got a violation letter about my garage door being left open. When did the violation occur? On a Monday at 2 p.m. aka around the time my fiancé would be home for a lunch break or to walk the dog. They even included a photo of it. My email conversation with the HOA as follows. Me. I recently received a very confusing letter from Poopity Scoop Management alleging that on Monday at 2 p.m., our garage door was left open. This is confusing because this would be around the time that my fiancé gets home from work for his lunch break and then goes to take out the dog for his afternoon bathroom break. The garage was not open for more than an hour and we were home at that time. Of course, we would not leave our garage door open unattended or while not at home. But to receive a violation notice for using our garage door while at home or literally just around the corner to get our dog to go to the bathroom logistically does not feel right. I kindly ask that this warning/violation notice would be removed from our record/homeowner file, as we would like to not incur any potential future fines for anything that Poopity Scoop Management would decide to consider as a first offense, etc. Thank you so much. HOA Response 1. Good morning and thank you for your email. So, this may have been a timing issue when we walked the property, and the garage door was open. We are obligated to send out the warning letters when we do our inspections. This was just a warning letter and not a fine letter. My reply. Thank you. I would just like to make sure that since the warning was incorrectly issued, that it is not held against us if the next warning that would be issued would be considered as a first offense. If we do receive another notice for this, it should be considered a warning again. HOA Response 2. Greetings. Just to be clear, this warning was not incorrectly issued. The door was open when we did our inspection, so we are obligated to issue the violation notice. So, I guess I have to live in fear of using my own garage door at the wrong time, huh? The next story is titled, Another HOA Story. I've seen a bunch of HOA stories lately, and have never shared a malicious compliance before, but I've been inspired to share this story from my parents. This was about 10 years ago, 2010-ish. My family lived in a very nice, gated community with an HOA. It was during the summer, and most weekends we would bring our boat to the house on Friday nights to take out on Saturdays, and then move it back to where we stored it Saturday night. HOA had a rule where you aren't allowed to keep boats within view of the street. Our driveway ran up beside the house and we'd intentionally position it to be as invisible as possible, for the one night it would be there. Basically, all that was visible was a small T-top over my dad's truck. Our HOA was actually pretty awesome, super laid back, and really only did anything when there was a complaint. It was a relatively small neighborhood, less than 50 houses, and the HOA was really good at throwing monthly parties where we'd shut down a cul-de-sac and everyone would bring food and music and we'd all have fun. This was kind of what an HOA is supposed to be in theory, a good thing. Well, Karen had made a complaint to the board about our boat and had provided time-stamped photos of multiple violations. Mind you, one night a week, but she'd claimed it was consistent. The president came by to tell us, and it wasn't there when he was. We told him our side of the story. Basically it was only there for about 12 hours on the weekend, and he said he nor anyone on the board had ever noticed it. But since they had a complaint, they had to request we remove it. I completely doubt they'd actually fine or do anything past asking, but rules are rules. Cue my father's mastery of the art of malicious compliance. Well, an important bit of information about this piece of property: when the neighborhood was built, my dad bought the house, as well as a property bordering the back of ours that was not a part of the HOA, or in the neighborhood, and originally had a small chain-link fence between it and the house. It was accessible through a small street with a few homes on it bordering our neighborhood. Well, my dad's beautiful brain started thinking about, and for the cost and inconvenience of storing it at a storage place, he could probably just build a pad for it behind the house. He had a gravel pad put in the corner of the property with a shed over it, intentionally as close to the edge of the property so it would preserve the view out the back or be very visible from the front of the house, either one. There wasn't any real backlash about it. Apparently Karen brought it up again and the board politely informed her that they had no control over that property, and I think she admitted defeat. The board actually found it pretty funny, and never had any other issues with them. Karen moved about a year later, and my parents moved about 2 years ago. Loved the neighborhood though, genuinely a positive HOA experience, just an annoying Karen to make life inconvenient. The next story is titled, A Mansion and the View. I lived in this town surrounded by magnificent vistas. There was a small development on the outskirts for upscale homes and mansions. Below the development were a few older homes. Many celebrities and business owners had vacation properties in the area, multi-million-dollar houses they used maybe 1 month out of the year. Real estate had always been at a premium. There was one older home amongst all these giant view lots. A new buyer was a guy who owned a slew of RV dealerships and had obscene amounts of money, so he bought the most prominent lot on the top of the hill as you entered the development of maybe 20 lots. His project was a massive stucco structure with a multi-car garage and a much bigger RV storage space with a huge roll-up garage door. Think of the biggest RVs you've seen, and he had a garage built for it with an automatic door. The house was a nondescript sand color with a red tiled roof, and the entire lot was tastefully landscaped with different kinds of rocks, small mounds here and there, and a few shrubs to be low maintenance. The back of the property was fenced in with an 8-foot or higher block wall. The fence itself probably cost $100,000. His neighbor was a schoolteacher who had lived there before the development started and had a modest house. He decided to take advantage of the skyrocketing land prices in the neighborhood and sell, except no one wanted his shitty house when there were much larger empty lots available. He decided the real issue was that the new behemoth blocked his view, and that's why no one wanted to buy his 3-bedroom ranch house at mansion prices. It was really that his home didn't appeal to the market. So, he became the president of the HOA, which included the older homes and the new development. And then the harassment started. The HOA had formed after the RV mansion construction had begun, but the home was so big, it took almost a year to finish. The HOA had passed a design theme rule that all houses must be painted in a specific color palette, with the predominant color being a taupe that was darker than this man's standard beige stucco color house. The palette included the taupe and a selection of trim colors in pink, teal, or tan. It was intended to give the community a Santa Fe look and feel, which just happened to be the colors of the president's shitty house. The RV owner took the HOA to court and the trial dragged on for a year. The guy never used the property, claiming it was still under construction during this time. He lost in court and had to repaint his property using only the design theme approved colors. So, the guy brought out his contractor and had him repaint the entire property the Pepto-Bismol pink trim color. Everything was painted this color: the house, the fence, the trim, and the rocks in the yard. Then he had the massive driveway to the garage done in the same pink stamped concrete. Even the garage doors were pink. He locked up the house and never stayed there. The HOA was in an uproar because this house could be seen at the top of the hill for miles. None of the other lot owners broke ground. The president's home didn't sell for 2 years. The last story is titled, HOA Wants Me to Build a Shorter Fence? Got it. I'm piggybacking off of the HOA trend going around here. This story was relayed to me by one of my favorite professors over 5 years ago, so my apologies if the details are foggy or inaccurate. My professor was a very, very private person, the sort of guy who would hesitate to tell you his favorite color if you hadn't known him long enough. He had recently had an incredibly nosy couple move in next door and realized the flimsy 4-foot fence he had got for the dog wouldn't keep out peeping eyes. So, he installed a fence. But instead of using a standard size, which he knew his neighbors would peer over, he built an 8-foot fence. It wasn't even a week before HOA was on his ass, threatening every fine they could and claiming he couldn't have a fence over 6 feet tall. So, being a dutiful citizen, he called the fence company to uninstall said fence. While the fence was being taken down, he closely examined the HOA handbook on the precise definition of a fence. He installed a new 6-foot fence that fit every single regulation, but with a 3-foot brick wall beneath it. Thanks for listening.